see one of those fugues that's very much about repetition, about swatches of material that get copied and pasted and they're always sort of lined up the same way. So you have a green idea, which we call the subject, a red idea, which we call the counter-subject, and then we have a yellow one, which is the second counter-subject, or the counter-counter-subject, bargain counter-subject. But, and it is always there once we get them in. So once we get red and green, yellow, red and green, then we have green, yellow, and red, and then we have red, green, and yellow, and then we have yellow, red, and green. And so again, it's this sort of like, how many different ways can we put these three things together? And he exhausts all the possibilities. But he always finds a way to do something that goes beyond what anybody might expect with it. So there may be a lot of copying and pasting going on, but there's copying and pasting that's very goal-oriented, very specifically oriented to the task at hand in the function of the various sections of the piece. Well, let's look at the ideas first of all. This theme. It's a very unique kind of structure because, first of all, it could be a sequence. And it would sound like that. But Bach does something different with this stuffing in the middle so that even though you hear the sequence and that allows your ear to sort of lock into it, it also has this little ornamentation in the middle which gives it a different kind of aspect. But what's really crazy about this piece and the hallmark of the piece is the last two measures of the subject, which are the exact same thing repeated. He set that up with this. That thing he kept repeating. It's the same sort of thing. Go on forever like that. So it's idling material. So now we have the theme. Green theme in the alto. And what does the soprano do along with it? So instead of doing something different to counter this repetition quality in the theme, in the subject itself, the counter-subject, it's almost banal, but that's what's brilliant about it. I mean, and it could also go on and on forever. It just keeps repeating itself. So basically, he's building this little theme and counter-subject unit that have the same kind of structure, the same locked-in repetition cycling quality. What's the one wrinkle, though, that's special about this counter-subject? So we started talking about the suspensions at the beginning of this session. That note is held on as a suspension. But the one rule about suspensions is they're supposed to resolve. If you go, that's supposed to resolve. You can't go and just leave it hanging. But that's what Bach does. That suspension is always kind of left hanging. So it's like the wrong notes left hanging in space. It just adds so much character to this, the whole spirit of this fugue. The yellow material, well, that's about rests. Very offhand, very just punctuation material, along with the other things. So that's all three of these pieces of material are emphasizing the same kind of clarity of the repetition. So instead of trying to, people sometimes think, oh, Bach is always so obscure and always so complicated. Clearly, in this fugue, he was trying to be as straightforward as he could with the bubbly, almost minimalist repetition of this idea. When he finally embarks on an episode, it's done by repeating the last bit of the subject, counter-subject complex up a step. So you just get more of that same kind of quality, just moving through different key. So this here is the same thing as that, except with the voices transformed around a little bit and changed up a step to the key of G minor. And then that leads to this sequence. Here, that little yellow material is where it has a special kind of exposed quality. And he likes that one. You can see at the end of the piece that the yellow in the bass becomes almost the standard for the way the piece is going to end. And it's when the yellow is in the bass. So this one here, starting. This. These suspensions create this dissonances. So that suspension is held over, and at this very moment we get that cluster. Does this resolve? No, because the dissonances here don't resolve. He just lets go and goes on to something else. Let me play this thing for you, starting here. Notice how the alto goes. And just drops that note and goes on with its business of finishing that material. So, all the material gets a lot of mileage by treating it different ways. One thing you may have noticed here